the first to know. Nsem-Pii TV.
Chief Justice Gertrude Torkonoo. N0nsense na come here say etiefoi. Lawyer Paul Thomas no say enti historians organa mutimi twist information za na adia enye no kore ede na utimi kama ne ye no kore eno ne adia enwonwa ni nyina ne say baby a omo try no eno na oye press conference the chief justice here press conference eniema akoso hon na asema historian me kan say wonim no wanyo na afi de go be kan say ono ankasa ne uncle Quaison oka ho ne tu his excellency Kwame Nkrumah, the first president, N0nsense. Now we are all twisted information, all safe. Which historian can was him say, "Obia what Jenny Ding, oh Ghana may mu pain." Enya adeketwa. Nanso we can through. Lawyer Paul Adom asserted the record straight about the Chief Justice case and entro and enkontompa among for HRD told say, "Mamunya sa na dear esse." Nefata se yama emra any pepeye anya adwuma na wo de one kasa personal interest be kansem etia Chief Justice asaman kasa eye ni descendant oyi his excellency the late president Kwame Nkrumah so ankasa kanse emra ku ni koso no oni nene na mo China na enkontompo paani we de yente no mamu ntum futuro mu yeni se mo pe kwan bi so no mapam na sa kwan bone we so le muntimi emfa so na tiefo yewura lawyer Paul Adom on the onim no was setting the record straight actually bibiem na esewani yenko ningo tie lawyer Paul Adom emrasisia.
This situation was taken in and taken over by the Justice Torkonoo conversation, and so on Ghana television, when they were analyzing the Justice Torkonoo's press conference, and Justice Torkonoo had talked about Major Aqua. By the way, all those who saw me in traffic and gave me thumbs up for the High Court judge's presentation, thank you very much. I've had so many, and my driver will tell me he's talking to you, and you said that he's sure. Everywhere I went, I saw people. They said, "Oh, that was fantastic." It was very difficult history to bring out, but fair enough, we did what we can for the future of our country. Now, when the GBC people were discussing this matter of Torkonoo's press conference, and they got to the part where Justice Torkonoo talked about Edu Lodge and Major Aqua, the historian chipped in something. I thought he was completely unfair to Quaison-Sackey, completely unfair to his family. Let's watch the video, then I'll tell you what I'm talking about. So please show the video. Let's see it.
That were prominent in the planning and the murder of
so she has no evidence to back it. She has no evidence. In fact, where in the history of Ghana, which textbook, which law case has ever brought up the Edu Lodge as a place that was used to plan the execution of the judges? Completely, it's not backed by any evidence whatsoever. Again, if you knew, if the Chief Justice in her life, and she's not a young person, she's old enough, she's past 63 or so. So if a person like this, who was old enough in 1981, knew that there was a planning to murder judges at that place, and she took no step and had decided to sit back until today, then she's a very dangerous citizen of this country. Yes, very, very dangerous. You knew all these things when those culprits involved had at all material times denied. And what is so worrisome is that being the Chief Justice of Ghana, every year you preside over the service that is held in honor of the judges. You preside over it. As a judge, you have gone there many times, and as a Chief Justice, you preside over at least twice. And now you come and tell us that you know all that happened, and you decided to keep quiet. But I believe that Madame is doing a big injustice to herself. And as my colleague said, there are certain things. You have a family, you know, a husband, and children, and classmates, and church, everything. You don't have to come and do this in public. You see, until she did that, until she did that, I didn't even know that her direct uncle, father's elder brother, was this man who betrayed Kwame Nkrumah, Dr. Quaison-Sackey, who took money from the CIA, and he was the most trusted confidant of Nkrumah, and told Kwame Nkrumah that Nkrumah should travel, there will be no coup, because CIA had promised him to make him the next president of Ghana. That man's niece is this man. Until all this matter, I wouldn't have known. So she should not sleep in those lies. Whether she likes it or not, she will not be the Chief Justice of Ghana forever. She should understand that.
I love this historian. I listened to him, but this was grossly unfair. It was completely baseless. And I like the way she talked about Torkonoo not having evidence. He says Torkonoo doesn't have any evidence about a due lodge. He said, which book, which this, which that. But for a historian of his caliber, he has not seen the final report of the Special Investigations Board. He hasn't seen it. This man is much old. He's old. A historian, he's a great historian of his caliber. He has not seen this document that mentions a due lodge. I'll come to Quaison-Sackey. But look at the due lodge. Let me just finish with this one. This is what it says. This is in the SIB report, which was authored by Justice, no less a person than Justice Nkrumah. He authored this report with other senior barristers, Akins, and all of that. They interviewed a wide range of people. It's here. Let me put it well so you can see it. Amatekwe and Captain Chikata met at Edu Lodge on 31st October 1982 and agreed upon a strategy to mislead the Special Investigations Board in order to save the government from disgrace, blah, blah, blah. So it is mentioned. Edu Lodge is clearly mentioned in a very, very important document called the Special Investigation, the report of the Special Investigations Board. This is the most gruesome murder that has occurred in the history of Ghana. And this is the document of the investigation of the murder by a committee put together by J.J. Rawlings and the PNDC, chaired by Nkrumah. And he says he hasn't seen it. Okay, forget about that. Let's come to Alex Quaison-Sackey. Put back Quaison-Sackey and Nkrumah. Let me deal with it. Alex Quaison-Sackey has died. He was Ghana's foreign minister. You come and sit on TV and say that he took $1 million from CIA to betray the Osajefo with absolutely no evidence, no basis. You just say it. And you are accusing Justice Torkonoo of saying the same thing. No basis, nowhere. He just said it. I wish I could play that again for you to see if I have time. Because he just said it that, oh, I didn't know that her uncle was Alex Quaison-Sackey. And Alex Quaison-Sackey, and somebody in the studio was giggling and laughing. I don't know who it was. That when they say something like that about your uncle, about your father, about your grandfather, you'll be giggling and laughing when the person produces absolutely not one shred of evidence. So we set out to do the research. Now, and he also says that it was Alex Quaison-Sackey who asked Nkrumah to travel. That's also so blatantly false. Nkrumah had been invited by the United Nations to become a mediator in the Vietnam crisis. So it has nothing to do with Alex Quaison-Sackey telling Nkrumah that you should travel and there will be no coup. That's so childish. Sounds like a conversation of 9-year-olds. Travel, there will be no coup. Is that how presidents travel? Presidents travel, there will be no coup. President don't travel, there will be coup. But Nkrumah has written extensively about his life. He has written extensively about his deeds. So a historian of that caliber, I thought that you go and read the document. This is The Dark Days in Ghana, one of the few books that Nkrumah expressly describes all the events that occurred around the coup and around his travel. So Nkrumah had traveled to go and do something very, very important of global consequence. And then you sit on TV and say, Alex Quaison-Sackey took $1 million. Oh my goodness, I'm so sad. If you know him, tell him we beg. We love his history. Distortion is the enemy of history. Distortion is the enemy of history. It's not good at all. He shouldn't do that. I want to be a historian too. And I try to make sure that I don't distort. You have to go to the facts and deal with the facts as it is. Especially, so you cannot come and say, Alex Quaison-Sackey took $1 million. You just say it on Ghana television. Nothing. You don't provide a shred of evidence. And you say it and walk away with it. I'm challenging him. He should bring the evidence that shows that Alex Quaison-Sackey did whatever. I'm not a CPP person. I don't even know Alex Quaison-Sackey. I never met him. Of course, he died before I was born, I'm sure. But that's not the point. It is about the distortion of national history, about which all of us ought to be very passionate. Now, let's go to the Dark Days in Ghana and see the things Nkrumah said. First, about Alex Quaison-Sackey, and secondly, about the so-called CIA money. Nkrumah talks about the money and names the people who Nkrumah alleges were to benefit from that money. Nkrumah names them. I'm totally disappointed that a historian of that caliber has not read the Dark Days in Ghana to be able to make important points on television. So all the history that he's been talking about, should we take him serious? I like the way he articulates, and I love his history. But I'm beginning to be worried that if the history he's been talking about is not based on any research, and he just comes to talk, then there's a problem. a real problem that Ghana television should be dealing with. A historian sits on the state broadcaster and talks about Ghana's history anyhow. All right, what did Nkrumah say? Let's check it out. Yes, this is the book, The Dark Days in Ghana. So, thank you. The Dark Days in Ghana is written by Osajifo. Let's go to the details then. All right. Now, we start from how the news of the coup broke to the Osajifo. He says, the news brought to me by the Chinese ambassador in Accra, who had gone on ahead to Peking to meet me and to be with me during my visit to China. He had just accompanied Prime Minister Chu and other officials when they welcomed us at the airport, and he had come straight on out of the government house where I was staying. I remember his exact words, quote, "Mr. President, I have bad news. There has been a coup d'etat in Ghana." I was taking a brief rest after the long flight from Rangoon and wondered if I had heard him correctly. "What did you say?" Nkrumah asked. "A coup d'etat in Ghana?" And it goes on. "Impossible," I said, Nkrumah speaking. Quote again, "But yes, it is possible. These things do happen. They are in the nature of the revolutionary struggle." This is Nkrumah talking. "I learned later that the Chinese welcoming party had known about events in Ghana when I stepped from the aircraft at Peking. But the characteristic courtesy had waited to break the news to me privately. My first reaction was to return immediately to Accra. If the VC-10 of Ghana Airways, in which we had traveled most of the way, had been at Peking, I would have embarked at once. But we had left it behind in Rangoon and had continued to Peking in an aircraft sent by the Chinese government. I knew that to avoid unnecessary bloodshed, I would have to be back in Ghana within 24 hours, and this was clearly impossible. I decided, therefore, to make an immediate statement to the Ghanaian people and to fight back on African soil just as soon as my host could make the necessary travel arrangements. As I discussed the news from Ghana with 22 officials accompanying me, among them Alex Quaison-Sackey, Foreign Minister, Kwesiama, Minister of Trade, M.F. Dayanan, Ambassador Extraordinaire in charge of African Affairs, J.E. Bosman, Ambassador to the UK, F. Arkest, Ghana's Permanent Representative at the United Nations, I was somewhat disappointed to note their reaction. At a time like this, I would have expected them to show courage and fortitude, but most of them were frightened. Quaison-Sackey, for example, developed diarrhea and must have visited the lavatory about 20 times that day. Their obvious dismay was in striking contrast to the calmness and courage of the 66 other personnel, the security officers, and the members of my personal secretariat. These were men. Compared with them, the politicians were old women. So this is part one. Nkrumah describes the reaction of Alex Quaison-Sackey and others. Note also that Nkrumah traveled with more than 70 people for one trip. The president of Ghana. Today we say president is traveling. Yeah, that's Nkrumah did that. He traveled. You saw it. 66 security. 66. They were all in the Ghana Airways. They flew to Peking. Sergeant for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the president. Anyway, that's a side issue. So Nkrumah now describes Alex Quaison-Sackey and says that he lacked courage. He didn't say that he took 1 million from anybody, but I'll get to the millions. And Nkrumah talks about the millions as well. I'm going to get there. So please tell the historian that he should just read The Dark Days in Ghana and correct himself and stop saying false things about people who have died and giving bad press to their families and all of that. People who have served Ghana, you don't come and sit on TV and say they've done something that you have no basis to say they've done. So Nkrumah says, Alex Quaison-Sackey went to the lavatory. He was frightened. The same man that they say he took 1 million for the coup to happen, he was frightened and he went to the lavatory several times. Okay, next agenda is here. Nkrumah says, with Alex Quaison-Sackey, I will deal later. Kwesiama settled down in London, blah, blah, blah. I won't read all that. It's about Alex Quaison-Sackey. So he said, with Alex Quaison-Sackey, I will deal with later. And he does the later in the book. On page 49 of Dark Days in Ghana, he talks about the money. Here we go. Do we have it? Okay, it's still about, it says Quaison-Sackey as foreign minister was entrusted with a very important mission. He was to go to Addis Ababa to represent the legal government of Ghana at the OAU conference of foreign ministers due to open within a few days. Instead of rising to the occasion and accepting this great challenge and responsibility, he went to Accra and offered his services to the neo-colonialist puppet, the so-called National Liberation Council. The latter, it seems, made little use of him. Traitors have no friends. So Alex Quaison-Sackey was supposed to go to the African Union Conference and to represent the government that had been seemingly overthrown by the coup d'etat in Ghana. Quaison-Sackey decided that he was too frightened to go and represent the CPP government. So he came to Ghana and tried to make peace with the people. And as Nkrumah says, they had very little use of him. They threw him away because traitors don't have friends. That's what Nkrumah says. So this is Quaison-Sackey. He refused to show fortitude. He refused to show strength. But in any case, at that time, all the list of people that Nkrumah mentioned, Kwesiama, Dayanan, in fact, Bedema had run away. His finance minister had gone. Almost everyone had deserted Nkrumah. So deserting Nkrumah in those days was not something to be called treacherous. The entire government had deserted the Osajefo for different reasons that we are not going to explain tonight. So Nkrumah was clear in his mind that like Quaison-Sackey was so frightened, together with the 22 officials, that he couldn't rely on them. He didn't say they took bribe. They didn't say they took money. That is the bad part that the historian talked about. Now let's go to the money. I'm sure we are there now. Okay. No, are we there? No, he's still talking about the coup, the operation. Well, he talks about Kotoka a little bit here that I might just add. He said Kotoka subsequently boasted of killing of Major General Bawa, but said because he was protected by juju, he was able to catch the bullets from the bullets that Bawa fired in his defense and to throw them back at him. When the counter coup of April 1967 took place, Kotoka's magic could not save him. Unlike Bawa, he surrendered without protest or struggle to those who had captured him at the headquarters. His juju, as Nkrumah put it, did not prevent him from being shot. So Nkrumah is talking about General Kotoka, who encountered Nkrumah's most trusted general, General Bawa. Those of you who know Accra, Bawa lived at Gold House. You know, Ashanti Goldfields office, there's a house directly on your way to Tank Palace in Roman Ridge. That's where General Bawa lived. And they went there to kill General Bawa. And Kotoka was sort of leading it. And Kotoka boasted, as Nkrumah put it, that Bawa shot back at him, but he had juju to collect Bawa's bullets. And Nkrumah says that when the coup occurred a year later in 67, Kotoka's juju could not save him. And Kotoka sadly died, for which reason we named the airport after him. Okay, let me get to the issues of money. Well, Nkrumah says something here about his family that we'll talk about another time. His mother was forced to appear before a commission. It has been one of the tasks of the CIA and other similar organizations to discover these potential quislings and traitors in our midst and to encourage them by bribery. Very important because Nkrumah talks about the deal. To encourage them by bribery and the promise of political power to destroy the constitutional government of their countries. In Ghana, the embassies of the United States, Britain, and West Germany were all implicated in the plots to overthrow my government. It is alleged that the U.S. ambassador, Franklin Williams, offered the traitors $13 million to carry out a coup d'etat. Afrifa, Harley, and Kotoka were to get a large share of this if they would assassinate me at the Accra airport as I prepared to leave for Hanoi. I understand that Afrifa said, quote, I think it will fail, and declined the offer. So apparently did the others. Now, where is this historian? The historian sitting on GBC. Nkrumah says there was a $13 million, and Nkrumah is alleged, we don't know whether it's true, but we believe Osajefo, don't we? He's our first president. Nkrumah said there was a $13 million available from the CIA to be paid to people to betray him. Nkrumah proceeds to name the people for whom the $13 million was created. Afrifa, Harley, and Kotoka. Does he mention Quaison-Sackey? You have seen the words that Nkrumah has used to describe Quaison-Sackey in this book. If Quaison-Sackey was part of collecting money, surely it would have been here. So people should stop doing that. Come and sit on TV and publish something that you have absolutely no basis to say. You are criticizing Torkonoo that she provides no evidence, even though the SIB report mentions a do lodge. Forget about that. And then you, the historian, you come and publish something, just say it about people, about Alex Quaison-Sackey, his heritage, his family, his children, his grandchildren. Alex Quaison-Sackey may have a grandchild who is 15 years old, and you are telling him that his grandfather collected. If it is true, it is true. It's part of our history. But if you don't have a basis to say it, it's really irresponsible to talk the way he spoke. Show the video again. Let's see the video, the GTV video again.
81 knew that there was a planning to murder judges at that place, and she took no step and had decided to sit back until today. Then she's a very dangerous citizen of this country. Yes, very, very dangerous. You knew all these things when those culprits involved had at all material times denied. And what is so worrisome is that being the Chief Justice of Ghana, every year you preside over the service that is held in honor of the judges. Preside over it. As a judge, you have gone there many times, and as a Chief Justice, you preside over at least twice. And now you come and tell us that you know all that happened, and you decided to keep quiet. But I believe that Madam is doing a big injustice to herself. And as my colleague said, there are certain things. You have a family, you know, a husband and children and classmates.